of grade 5. I welcome you to today's class on social studies. And on social studies, we'll be looking at the concluding part of our previous topic, which was group conflict. As a concluding part on group conflict, we are looking at role of communication in conflict resolution. Role of communication in conflict resolution. And remember, in our last class, we talked about what group conflict is. And we said that conflict could mean a struggle, a fight, or a disagreement from where? Between people or group of people, or between communities, states, and countries. Now this fight, quarrel, disagreement or struggle between these people or group is what we refer to as what? Conflict. And we also say that conflict can arise in different forms, which we talk about the causes of conflict. People will not just go into quarrel, struggle, fight or disagreement, but there must be some certain interest that will lead them into all of these things, into conflict. Now, most of these things that can lead people into conflict, which we say was the causes of conflict, are one, we may mention of what? Lack of cooperation. Now, cooperation has a lot of role to play when it comes to what? Conflict and its resolution. That is why lack of cooperation can cause what? Conflict, when people fail to cooperate with one another. Alright, now we say that when people fail to work together or agree to work together towards achieving a certain goal, is what we talk about what? Lack of what? Cooperation. And this lack of cooperation can lead to what? Leads to conflict. And another one we talked about was that lack of mutual understanding can also lead to what? Conflict. Lack of mutual understanding can lead to conflict. Now, when people fail to have a certain understanding within themselves on the ability or the capability of the other person towards a certain job, they tend to be what? A conflict. But when there is a better mutual understanding, we see that conflict will never do what? Arise. Now, that was part of the causes of conflict, as we mentioned, because we mentioned like 4 causes of conflict. Then the other one was lack of trust, which was number 3, lack of trust. So when there is no trust in both parties, we see that conflict will definitely arise. That means that in every thing we do, either as a group or as a people, there is need for what? For trust, in order to carry out our duties and attain a certain goal. When there is lack of trust, definitely conflict will do what? Arise. Alright, all of that were the causes of what? Conflict. We also talked about the consequences of what? Conflict. And the consequences of conflict, we mentioned what? Hatred and envy. Now, when people have a certain conflict, definitely it will result to what? Hatred. Because what? When you look at a particular group or people that have actually created a problem or a conflict, definitely at the end there is bound to do what? To hate one another or envy one another. Then another consequences of conflict is that it can also lead to what? Isolation and loneliness. Now, when you have a certain conflict with other people and you choose to do what? To differentiate yourself from them in order to prevent further conflict, you definitely isolate yourself, and in that process you lead to do what? Find yourself lonely. So that's why we say that one of the consequences of conflict is that it leads to what? Isolation and loneliness. Then another one we talked about was also that conflict can actually slow or uneven development. That means that development will definitely be slowed down as a result of what? Conflict. Take for instance where you have actually established a certain project, and because of conflict that project is being destroyed. Now because that project is destroyed, you can never achieve that development, as you ought to achieve it at that particular time. So it brings about what? Slow in what? Development. This is part of the reason why some places or some states are actually not properly developed because of what? Conflict that often arises. Alright, now with all of those things we discussed in our last class is what lead us to the today's topic, which we say is the role of communication in conflict or resolution. Now, having experienced all of this conflict and its consequences, we are said to have what? A resolution. Resolution is an approach towards what? Finding solution to the conflict we are talking about. Now, in order to find solution to the conflict, there's need for us to do what? To apply what? Communication. And communication is very, very important in what? Towards addressing what? Conflict. Communication is a very important role towards addressing what? Addressing the issue of conflict. Now, in communication, we are meant to understand that communication in conflict resolution is what? It's a process by which those involved in the conflict exchange what? Information or expresses their thoughts or feelings about the conflict and issues which led to the issue or the conflict through what? Dialogue. So I'll take it again. So conflict or communication in conflict resolution is a process by which those involved in a conflict exchange information or express their thoughts and feelings about the conflict and the issues which led to it through dialogue. Now that means that in order to apply communication towards solving the problem of conflict, we must first of all do what? We must initiate the process of dialogue. By dialogue, we communicate with one another and trying to find solution to the conflict. And by trying to find solution to the conflict, we give room for people to do what? To express their thoughts and feelings about the issue or about the problem that led to what? The conflict. So when we now give room for people to dialogue, certainly we have been able to apply communication in what? Solving the problem of what? Conflict. Now, this is why we can say that communication is very important for what? For addressing the issue of conflict. Now, after applying communication, towards resolving the issue of conflict resolution, we are also meant to understand that there are certain strategies for what? For conflict resolution. And all of these strategies for conflict resolution tends to do what? Bring about the process of what? Communication. So it's on that note we have what? The strategies of conflict resolution. On the board we have strategies for conflict resolution. Now, in order to do or resolve a particular conflict, we should do all of these things listed here. If we really want to do what? To resolve a particular conflict, we need to apply all of this listed here. Now, number one is that we should make sure that people involved understand each other. Now, during the process of dialogue, we should do what? Make sure that the people involved understand each other. And that is why, if you can remember from our previous lesson, we said that one of the causes of conflict is what? Lack of what? Understanding. So therefore, if there is understanding, or understanding is applied as one of the strategies, you see that we are able to solve the problem of what? Conflict. So that is why one says that we should make sure the people involved understand each other. Because when there's understanding, definitely conflict will never arise. Alright, now we have number 2 here, which says that ensure that the parties involved are willing to resolve the conflict so that they can live in peace with one another. We should ensure that the parties involved are willing to resolve the conflict so that they can live in peace with one another. Now, another thing that can actually stop conflict is the willingness to resolve what? Conflict. Most times when people are in conflict, it's because of what? Their unwillingness to resolve a particular issue. And in the process of forcing those who are not willing to resolve a particular conflict, you rather create more conflict. But when there is willingness expressed by the parties themselves towards finding solution to the conflict, we will be able to do what? Solve the problem of what? Conflict easily. So we should ensure that the parties involved are willing, take note of that, willing to do what? Resolve the conflict so that they can live in peace with one another. Then the third one says we should organize a dialogue in order to get the parties involved to express their feelings and thoughts, just as we have mentioned here, which is the role of communication in what? Conflict resolution. That we should do what? Organize a dialogue in order to get the parties involved to express their feelings and thoughts. Now, this has actually expressed the role of communication, which is through dialogue and conflict resolution. So it's when this dialogue is being initiated that the people involved are allowed to do what? Express their feelings and thoughts in order to know the cause of this conflict. That means that during this dialogue, you can easily point out the causes or what led to the conflict. So that is why dialogue is very important. It's a very important tool towards what? Conflict resolution. And lastly, number 4 on the board, we say we are to allow a neutral group to settle the dispute. By allowing a neutral group to settle the dispute, it will easily resolve the problem of conflict, because this neutral group will definitely have no interest in either party A or party B. So we stand at a neutral ground to do what? Find amicable settlement to the conflict. Because if we find a party that has interest in any of the group involved in this conflict, definitely will not solve this conflict correctly, because the other party or any of the party will not be satisfied with the judgment. So that is why we are to allow a neutral group to do what? To settle the dispute. Alright, so we have been able to conclude our lesson on what? Conflict, beginning from the meaning of conflict, which we discussed in our last class, talking about the meaning of conflict, the causes of conflict, and the consequences of what? Conflict. And today we have been able to conclude with the role of communication in conflict resolution, which we say that communication is a very important important tool for addressing issues which occur as a result of what? Conflict. So communication is a very important tool for what? Addressing issues which occur as a result of what? Conflict. And we have been able to discuss further, saying that communication in conflict resolution is a process by which those involved in conflict exchange information or express their thoughts and feelings about the conflict and the issues which led to it through dialogue. So this has been able to explain the role of what? Communication, and went further to talk about the strategies for conflict resolution. I will say that in order to resolve a particular conflict, we should do the following, which we listed here. We say make sure the people involved understand each other, ensure that the parties involved are willing to resolve the conflict so that they can live in peace with one another. Then number 3, we say organize a dialogue in order to get the parties involved to express their feelings and thoughts. Then number 4, we say allow a neutral group to do what? To settle the dispute. Alright, so with this we have come to the end of this topic and the end of our lesson for today. So before we go, I will quickly give you a little assignment to do. Alright, now on our assignment, we are asked to answer these 2 questions on the board. Number 1 is explain the role of communication in conflict resolution. Number 2, mention 3 strategies for conflict resolution. Mention 3 strategies for conflict resolution. Alright, with these few assignments, we have successfully come to the end of today's class. Please take your lesson seriously. Always do your assignment and ensure to submit to the school on time. Thank you for having me. I remain your teacher, Mr. Oga Joseph. Bye for now.